Oh, welcome to our regular council meeting, March 7th, 2024. I'd like to acknowledge that we're holding this on the traditional territory of the Klamath Nation. We're going to start with announcements. And I would just like to reiterate what our high-priced consultants, George Cuff and Tracy Lawrenson, said about making meetings efficient. So in the normal process, we will receive reports. And if anyone on council has a question, then they can ask a question. But as our consultants say, please ask the question. There's no need for long introductions to the question. And then after the questions have been dealt with, there'll be a motion. Councilors will have the opportunity to express whether they're for and against the motion, and then we'll have a vote. So also with regard to the questions at the end of the meeting, if you can actually focus on the question that you would like staff or council to address. Any other announcements from council?
Okay, I'm first announcement. So last year it was announced that a foundry would be coming to the Powell River area, and this is something that supports the overall health and wellness, but in particular the mental health of youth. And there will be an open house tomorrow at the Youth and Family Services building on Ocean View tomorrow from 5 to 7. There's an additional youth one the Friday after at the bowling alley, but that's specifically to youth. So for the general public, tomorrow from 5 to 7 at Youth and Family Services. And then Saturday, busy day in town. We've got CD Saturday happening. We've got, well, all throughout this week, we've got the Cadet International Film Festival going on. I'm selling raffle tickets on Saturday, so I dare you to come and avoid eye contact with me, as I am, I think, the best raffle ticket seller of any volunteer there, just saying. And then also Lift's 40th birthday party Saturday night, an 80s dance party with proceeds going to the food bank. I look forward to going to that. After the International Film Festival, there is an Oscar party being held at the Patricia Theatre. And so you can come, I think, from 3 to 8, and there's drinks and food. And I'm not sure if it's other Oscar parties where I've been to where people are allowed to throw popcorn and boo at the screen, but it could be fun like that. And I'll stop there for now. Thanks.
I'll just remind everybody that they've only got a couple of days left to get a birdhouse from the Hospice Society. You go down to the Art Center. The Art Center is a good place to go all the time anyway. and bid on some of the birdhouses and get some accommodation up in your backyard for our feathered friends. So go down to the Art Center, buy a birdhouse for hospice.
Councillor Southcott.
Thank you, Worship. Tomorrow is International Women's Day. And let's see, what was the other one I was going to mention? Yes, daylight saving on Saturday night or Sunday morning, very early. Thank you.
Councillor Elliott.
Oh, sorry. I gotta get my mic. I was gonna talk about Foundry, but that's been mentioned already. So there is the Festival of Performing Arts going on at this point in time. I will be going to the Evergreen Theatre on Saturday night to take that in. Anybody who's interested in any of those events, you can go to the Music Academy's website and they have their schedule of events and you can buy tickets that way. So I encourage people to go to the Festival of Performing Arts. And I beg to differ. I do believe the last time I sold tickets at the film festival, I was the record selling ticket person.
Councillor Palm.
Yeah, just a short announcement. I ran into Mr. Todd English, who is instrumental with the Powell River Regals, bringing the Koi Cup to town. March 26th to the 30th, week-long event. I hope our citizens will get out and support. It's a costly endeavor, and they need all the support they can get. So let's watch some hockey.
Thank you. We'll move now to the adoption of, oh, I'm sorry. Let's go to Councillor Almeida.
Thank you, Mayor. I said I want to be the end, not forgotten.
Misunderstood.
It's all good. It's all good. And following up Councillor Palm's comments, yeah, the Regals are hosting the Koi Cup in a couple of weeks. And as a tune-up to that, they're in the middle of the McCallum Cup with the team from Nanaimo. Games 2 and 3 are happening this weekend, tomorrow and Saturday. So Friday's game is at 7:30. Saturday's game is an earlier one at 8:15. The Regals are down 1-0 in the series, so it should be a couple of good games. Tickets will be $10 at the door. Kids under 12 are free, or anyone who plays minor hockey, come with your gear. And then Koi Cup passes are available as well right now. You can get the whole week. Works out to $80 for 8 games. So $80 for 8 games versus $15 per game later. You can get those passes at the Peak, at Taws, or Royal LePage leading up to it. Also this weekend, in case you don't already have a busy schedule, the French Club is got a Francophone festival happening on Saturday and Sunday with a bunch of events. Many of them are free to partake in, so you can check out the French Club website and see what's happening over there. And then next weekend, since we're not meeting next week to promote this, but the next weekend, the 15th and the 16th, are the Kings' final home regular season games of the year as well. So they are fighting to get into the playoffs, but next weekend will be the last 2 games to catch them at home. And the Saturday game, the 16th, is also their Kalama Nation night as well. So they'll be celebrating the nation, might be pulling out the orange jerseys as well. So it should be a fun time.
Thank you. Now we will move to the adoption of the agenda. Yes, to the
Your Worship, the delegation for today is sick, so he was not able to attend tonight.
any other changes? Yes.
I was going to move adoption with the removal of the delegation given the sickness.
Seconded by Councillor Palm. All in favor? Passed unanimously. We'll now move to item 3, which is the adoption of minutes, and we have 5 minutes to be adopted. Councillor Isaacs.
I move adoption of the minutes of the special council meeting held February 8th, the regular council meeting held February 15th, the special council meeting held February 15th, the special council meeting held February 27th, and the special council meeting held February 27th be adopted.
Seconded. And
Sorry, it's okay. I thought there was a duplicate, but I remember there was actually 2.
All in favor of the motion? Passed unanimously. And we will now move to correspondence. We have a letter received March 1 from the Cathett Board of Directors regarding the Waste Management Conversion and Service Establishment Amendment Bylaw number 523. Is staff going to provide any additional information?
Your Worship, this came from the regional district, as I believe from the information I got, that the board recommended getting council approval for this. I don't know much else about it other than what's in the correspondence there.
We have a request, Councillor Doubt.
Yeah, so, just to fulfill this information, the regional district applied or passed a motion to increase the limit on taxation that could be made for the waste treatment for the solid waste collection program. And in order to do that, you have to get the permission of all the participants in the service. And the participants in that service are each one of the electoral areas and the city. And in order to make that change, you need to have 66 2/3 of the participants vote in favor. Now, the regional district got 66 2/3 by asking all of the electoral area representatives if they would agree, and they all did. So it was sent off to the Minister of Municipal Affairs, who gave it the thumbs up and said we can do that. At the regional district board meeting, I brought up the idea that it would be nice to inform the city that we were doing this, and hopefully next time we'll give the city an earlier opportunity to make a decision on whether to participate or whether to support it or not. So this is to provide information to the city that that change has been made for the solid waste program.
Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this too is kind of a learning experience for me when this one came before the Regional District Board. It didn't require any kind of vote from city representatives because they'd already gotten the signatures they needed from the area representatives. Director Doubt at that meeting made the point that it really ought to be put toward the city to give the city a chance to sign on as well, even though they didn't need our signature because they already had 2/3. Due process would presume that we would be informed, and so the report and the bylaws attached for our information. We can sign it if we want to. If we don't want to sign it, it still goes forward and will be passed. And we are participants with or without our signature. So that's what I learned.
Any further discussion before? Yes, Councillor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just need a little further clarification because when I was on the board some time ago now, that's not quite the way we used to do business. Did we have involvement on the solid waste management committee board?
We have 2 municipal representatives on the regional district board.
Yes. Was there somebody on the waste management board when they discussed this and brought it forward to you?
It was brought forward at the regional district board meeting.
For the first time you saw it?
We first saw it at the finance committee meetings. We saw it at the regional board meetings. It was reported here when it was brought up at those meetings, and it was passed at the regional board meeting by all of the directors of the regional district.
Thank you for that clarification.
Okay. Any further discussion, questions? Yes.
Is it worthwhile from an intergovernmental relations perspective to pass a motion? Or, I mean, I know it's not necessary, but is there, from your understanding of the relationship, is it worth it? I'm looking to the.
Direct this to our CAO.
Through the chair, it's a discretion of council, and it would certainly show your endorsement of the direction that they are heading in.
Okay. So if somebody wishes to do that, we can do that. If not, we'll just move on. Yes.
Worship.
Sorry.
I know that it's procedural only, and the waste management plan is a legislated sort of requirement that is overseen by the Ministry of Environment, and the updates and improvements are done slightly different than many of the other things we do. But I do think it is worth signing on and having the regional district in the practice of sending things to us over here at the city. Even though there's representatives on the regional board over at the regional districts, when they're trying to implement something like this, those representatives do not get to sign on behalf of the city. Only this council can do that. So for signing on to the agreement, that is a decision of this council and not the representatives of the regional board, just to make that clear. So we have an opportunity to say yes. If we don't say yes, it goes forward without our signatures, and it appears as though, it's not necessary for us there. So I do think there's a diplomatic, good relationship reason to sign on. And I could make the motion that the city of Powell River sign on to the bylaw to go to the province, but I think we're behind the ball anyway because they already sent it. So I don't know that the version that gets to the province would actually have our signature on it or not.
Councillor Dowd.
I think I heard a motion there and I'm seconding it.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. Any further Councillor Palm?
Your Worship, I don't feel comfortable with this motion on regards to correspondence. I see this comes up for further discussion on our agenda later on. I would certainly, and I'm sure the public, the city would like a little further clarification on numbers that are in this report, because there are many. And I think we need a little more further explanation of those numbers.
Councillor Isaacs.
Yeah, I support the motion. The discussion that we have later on related to solid waste is specifically related to collection within the city, and so this is a bit of a different scope, and it's something that is required in order for the regional district to move forward in its solid waste management practices, and so I support this motion.
I'd ask the CO now to tell us what the motion on the floor is.
Your Worship, that was going to be my next question. If Councillor Elliott could just clarify what her motion.
Maybe I could help.
Councillor
Yeah.
Dowd.
Okay. That the city provide participating area consideration of consent to the Waste Management Conversion and Service Establishment Amendment Bylaw number 523.1 2023 of the Cathet Regional District.
Right. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Great. Passed unanimously. We'll now move to 6, which is committee reports, and we have 6.1 and 6.2 that deal with the Select Committee on City-Owned Property meetings held in September and January. Any discussion? Councillor Palm.
I'm just going to make the recommendation for discussion, Worship, and that is that council supports staff applying for Community Emergency Preparedness Fund.
Point of order or point of click. Councillor Palm, we're on item 6.1 right now.
Sorry.
You are on that committee, you could talk about those minutes.
Yes. Well. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to move adoption of the minutes of September 13th, the minutes of January 31st, and the minutes of February 13th. And those were just standard meetings. There was some discussion and confusion as to the direction the committee was heading. But I think that's been sorted out by our last meeting, and the future minutes that you'll be receiving in that regard was it February 13th, the last meeting we had?
January 31st.
I see February 13th. Is that the last one?
February 29th.
Oh, I'm referring to February 13th.
That's the
Is
committee.
that the
of
last
whole.
meeting where we sorted out the letter?
No, those drafts.
No, it wasn't. Okay, so that's why I'm saying, I'm just going to move adoption of these minutes.
Okay, we have Councillor Elliott, did you second it?
Yeah.
We don't move adoption of these.
These are already approved minutes.
Then we just, is there any
You received
to receive? Is
for
anybody?
discussion?
They're just simply there for information. They're already approved by the bodies that they're the minutes of. The Select Committee approved their minutes and the Committee of the Whole
Our
approved their minutes.
corporate officer happy? Yes, she's nodding, she's happy. So we will move to 7, which is committee recommendations.
Point
Your worship, I just wanted to speak to the items on the agenda before we moved on.
Please.
Thank
speak.
you. So the minutes sort of speak for themselves. There was a number of requests in all of the meetings that are in the minutes for more clarity from council, and specifically around certain areas. I understand that was discussed at the last meeting, which the minutes are not here yet because they wouldn't have been approved by the committee yet. I happen to have missed that last meeting, so I wasn't entirely sure that all of the things that were requested of council were actually talked about at the last meeting or not. So others I'll have to go with seeing the minutes when they do come out. But I just wanted the council to be aware that the reason the minutes are on our reports is so that we can speak to those meetings and make sure council's looped in on how those meetings went. And if there are things to discuss as a result of those minutes, that's when they happen is right now in case there's actions that we need to do. So in both of these minutes, there's actions asked for by council, which everybody can read and can see. And I'm hopeful that we're on top of that now. So I don't know, you guys were at the last meeting, I don't know.
Well, having participated in the January 31st meeting, I came away with the feeling that the committee felt that they had received the direction required and we're moving forward on a well-defined path.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Councilor Isaacs.
Yes, and usually the committee of the whole meetings, the person chairing them reports on those meetings. And so the 6.3 is the committee of the whole held February 13th that I chaired. So at that meeting, we had a quarterly policing update from the RCMP staff, Sergeant Rod Weeb, where the numbers look a little bit dramatic on a quarter-over-quarter basis, but on an annual-to-annual basis, numbers are looking overall quite promising. We had a number of delegations. We had a delegation introducing us to the upcoming and now past Black History Month celebration. And we also had a number of delegations related to conduct of elected officials. We discussed the correspondence largely related to council conduct, and we ended up passing 2 motions related to, one was an apology for comments made at our January 30th meeting, which hurt members of Tla'amin people, and one was to schedule a gathering with Tla'amin Nation intended to have circle conversations. We referred a development permit to council meeting regarding a wildfire service request in their lease area. We had a number of community engagement reports. Committee of the Wholes are where council members speak to what they've been up to in community. And then we had a notice of motion, which was dealt at a subsequent council meeting. That's everything. Thank you.
Any further comments? Great. We will move to 7, which is committee recommendations. And the first one is the Community Emergency Preparedness Fund grant joint application with the Tla'amin Nation. Yes, Councilor Isaacs.
I move that council support staff applying for the Community Emergency Preparedness Fund EOC CEPF grant in a joint application with Tla'amin Nation for providing DOC capabilities for Powell River Fire Rescue.
Second by Councilor Almeida. Any discussion?
It was discussed quite a bit
All
at
right.
committee of the whole.
All in favor? Passed unanimously. We'll now move to reports for decision. A request for support of a class action lawsuit. I'll turn to our CAO or CO.
Thank you, Your Worship. So you do have the report in the agenda package, as well as some supplemental information that got emailed to you, I believe. In addition, we do have Ms. Fiona Koza with West Coast Environmental Law online. If you have any questions that you would like to direct her way, she's happy to answer.
Yes, Councillor Southcott.
Thank you, Worship. I would like to move option 2. I'll read that and then I'd like to speak to it if I may, please. I move that Powell River City Council commit to providing up to $14,000 in funding to pursue a class action lawsuit against large oil, gas, and coal companies contingent upon other BC municipalities joining and raising a minimum amount of $500,000 combined.
Second for discussion.
Councillor Southcott.
Thank you, Worship. I've given a great deal of thought to this. And I want to start off with just a point, and that is that I believe the courts are the conscience of our democracy. They are our chambers of sober second thought for policy. I initially disagreed with the Sue Big Oil approach. I want to be positive, not fight a Goliath particularly, which is pretty much the oil and gas industry. But the position that I am taking right now is that this is not about blame. This is an invitation. This is my position. This is an invitation for cooperation. And a few years back, I noticed that 9 out of 10 of the biggest revenue generating corporations in the world were oil and gas. I now see that it's only 5 of them. Things change. However, it is 5. There's an awful lot of wealth involved in that industry. And I don't feel that we have any alternative to taking this approach. In Canada, senior government policy is deeply aligned with the oil and gas industry. I discovered that quite clearly a couple of years ago with the last term's Climate Change Mitigation and Adaptation Committee, the final project that we did. And that was to analyze the Clean BC Roadmap to 2030. It bothered me. I had to read it multiple times and then start doing word searches and really analyze it to realize that basically that plan is market-based. In other words, it puts profits first against the stated objectives of which are principally environmental. And profit first doesn't work anymore, in my view. So I consider that to be a very large policy flaw. However, I also see that it's consistent with federal policy as well. So the report that was submitted to this council from that committee really expanded broadly on what the provincial plan put out. And it also included various leadership initiatives that this city has already taken. In 2019, we declared a climate emergency with many other local governments all over Canada. Our last strategic plan included one of our strategic priorities of that plan was a carbon negative corporate city. That was a priority. A year ago in March, I attended a report of the Simon Fraser University WASC Center delegation to COP27 in Egypt, which was the previous November. Their report basically stated that Canada is now internationally regarded as a laggard country. Not only are we way behind European Union countries, some of which have petroleum industry corporations, who have long-term plans to transfer their energy investments. So to become what we have called alternative energy companies, that doesn't exist here in North America to a significant
Point of order, Councillor Southcott, could you address the motion?
Yes, I'm doing that, Your Worship. Our situation here, and I've got a list of, so Canada's regarded as laggard. We're even behind the United States. The United States, there's 60 municipalities and state governments that are now following this Sue Big Oil approach. This could be about blame. There's a book published by Jeff Dembicki, which hasn't been challenged by the industry. This book here, which is the documentation of back 30 years when essentially the oil industry decided to take an approach that made them basically merchants of doubt in order to stop progressive policy from including their wealth in addressing climate change. Our situation here basically is that we have in our community is that we have a $800,000 budget item for repair of our seawalk, renovation of our seawalk. That damage was from northwesterly storm, and these have happened in the past, but nothing like the one that caused that damage to the seawalk. Generally speaking, our bad storms during the winter throughout history have been from the southeast. But our weather patterns are changing here. Also, we almost got sued by Quality Foods a couple of years before that for flooding. We didn't, we dodged that. But it resulted in stormwater renovation of our system on that end of Westview. And I'm not sure how much that cost, but I think it was pretty significant because now all of that was diverted into McGuffey Creek. I happened to be driving through the intersection of Alberni on Joyce, and there was a 2-foot high geyser coming out of the manhole, which blew my mind. The manhole cover had been blown off and was on the other side of the road. This is what's happening here. That's flooding. Fires, we're aware of communities having burned. I'll go back to winds. We're having more southeasterlies here, and the fire danger for us, which I don't think is as severe as where cities have burned in British Columbia or in Western Canada, is from the southeast. But we've had increasing numbers of southeast winds and storms during the summer. I've been noticing this over the past few years because I'm a sailor and I watch the wind. And incidentally, there's over 40 fires still active from last year in northwestern or northeastern British Columbia.
Councillor Southcott, I know you're very passionate about this, but if you could stick to scientific-based information.
Point of order,
Chair.
Chair. He's not required to speak to, he's required to speak to whatever he likes as long as it's on topic for 15 minutes. No.
So,
Quiet.
yes, we all use oil and gas every day. And this isn't about blaming or taking from that industry. It is about including the wealth of that industry in a collective society-wide approach to what is increasingly seen as a colossal problem. Our young people, the first fall of this term, I went and I visited a couple of classes at Brooks, and I got information basically about priorities that those classes had, the young people in Brooks, and their priorities dominantly relate to resilience and sustainability that relate to their future. And that's what we're talking about here, is securing the kind of funding that our country needs, let alone our community, to secure futures for our young people. So there's a moral imperative here. I would frankly be embarrassed if we don't support this, because what's being asked for is approximately equivalent to a little less than 1% of the amount that we have budgeted for road repair this year. 1%. And I'm going to come back to my bottom line, and that is that profit first doesn't work. It hasn't motivated the big money in our continent, let alone our country, to take the approach that we must take now. So I'm urging us to support this, and I obviously emphatically do. Thank you, Your Worship.
Any other discussion? Councillor Elliott.
I have a question for our Ms. Koza, is that right? So I've asked questions before and I've never really received an answer for this question. And it's what I'm puzzled about is the jurisdictions in Canada for resources for coal and oil and gas and many other of our natural resources are owned and regulated by the government. Our government decides no environmental impacts can happen without authorization, and then they proceed to have an environmental impact review whereby their own people review what comes in and is applied to by industry to pay royalties and have the rights to extract and use our oil, and they pay us for it. They can set those royalties at any fee that they want, including to cover costs such as these. So they have that power. And part of that process is before authorizing any of these impacts, these environmental impacts, they review all of the scientific data and they have scientists to do that. How do we properly put before the courts suing an industry when we really ought to be suing the decision makers, in my opinion? And then how do we as a arm of that government, like it seems to me this should be a citizen class action suit, not a government one, simply because of the, in Canada at least, the authorization of all of this is the government, not industry. So they are not deciding what levels to extract or how to process it or what have you. They are asking for permission, and the government reviews and decides the impacts they will allow and then authorizes them. So because of that jurisdictional question, I'm just thinking we're the wrong party to run this class action suit, and it ought to be citizens groups. And I haven't received, do you understand my question?
I do somewhat. I would encourage you to maybe, well, depending on how things go today, but you could talk to my colleague Andrew Gage, who's our lawyer. But I would say that, I mean, municipalities are not, obviously not the province, and under the community charter, municipalities have all the powers of a natural person to bring a case against those who've caused you financial harm, and that includes fossil fuel companies. And as the owner of public infrastructure, 60% of public infrastructure, and the manager of taxpayer dollars, the city also has a fiscal obligation to take steps to recover financial losses caused by fossil fuel companies rather than passing them on to taxpayers. So
you don't have an answer to my question?
Sorry, that's what I was trying to say, that I think that it is different. You do have a jurisdiction. A municipality is not the same as the province. We do think the province, all levels of government, should be suing big oil and taking steps to curb emissions, but that doesn't mean that the city does not have this jurisdiction. Indeed, as mentioned previously, 60 U.S. cities and states are suing big oil. Chicago, just a couple of weeks ago, making it 1/4 of Americans live in cities and states that are suing big oil. Of course, their political system's different than ours. So, but anyway, right. So anyway, 5 BC cities have done this. Are committing to this. This is not going to go ahead until we have support from municipalities representing 500,000. So even if you step in, you won't spend a penny until there's municipalities representing 500,000 people. That will probably require some big cities, maybe Burnaby or Victoria or like some other larger communities. So by then, maybe this question will have been fleshed out. You're not going to spend a penny until that question, or any question you have is answered. This is just like a commitment to back this, to back a lead plaintiff in bringing this lawsuit. When a lead plaintiff step forward, this doesn't have to be Powell River as the lead plaintiff. You're just more supporting it financially in principle, that communities need this, and then also so that you can recoup compensation. So if that doesn't, well, I guess, and Andrew brought forward the delegation back in July, and unfortunately he couldn't be here today because this all came up very last minute and he had another obligation. But hopefully that helps to answer. I mean, we have discussed this. Cities do definitely have jurisdiction. Another community did have that question, and Andrew, I think, was able to allay their concerns. Not the exact same question as yours, but just like, do cities really have jurisdiction? And yes, indeed, they absolutely do.
Yeah, it wasn't really a jurisdiction question. It wasn't related to jurisdiction at all. It was related to the fact that we are only naming companies as plaintiffs, and the decision maker ought to be lumped in as well, which is the government, and then so I think it's just being put forward in a way that doesn't suit how Canada runs their resources, and it's being modeled after jurisdictions like United States or areas that are completely different than ours.
Okay,
so my question wasn't whether the municipality can have lawsuits. That's not my question.
Okay.
And I can see that you don't have an answer to my question.
That's okay.
And I wasn't here during the delegation.
There are lots of lawsuits against governments. I was just going to say there are 2,000 lawsuits in the world, climate change lawsuits.
Point of order, please.
Oh, sorry.
Would you listen to what the counselor is asking and then address the question?
I thought I understood.
So the floor is mine, and I appreciate you trying to answer the question. I was not here during the delegation in July. I wasn't able to make that. So this was my first chance to ask the question. And everybody who's talked to me about this so far, when I talk about my concerns about who it is that we're suing and not lumping in, like the companies along with the decision makers should all be named in the lawsuit in this jurisdiction anyway. And the fact that I'm concerned that we are not going to be making it past the post that everybody thinks is easy to get past. I prefer to, and we can add on at any time if I happen to be wrong, but I don't feel comfortable endorsing not because I don't care about the environment, because I do, and I do want our costs covered. But I think that we should actually put this class action forward and include all of the players that are making the decisions and not target only a small piece of them. So that bothers me. It's not comprehensive enough. It seems to single out a single actor when it's not just that. So I'm not in favor of the motion today. Should I be proven wrong in the future, we could join at any time. Thank you.
Councillor Palm.
Worship, just what I'm about to say, with all due respect to our passionate councillor and the passionate people that are here tonight representing Soo Big Oil, I've had a chance to read the report, and I happen to agree with Councillor Elliott that first of all, I just want to make the point that the recommendation that was on our screen here tonight was to receive the report for information. That was option number 1. Councillor Southcott has jumped to option number 2. So I've put a lot of value into staff recommendations because they've obviously spent a lot of time reading through this and coming to a conclusion. So as Councillor Elliott said, right now there are only 5 cities that have donated a small amount of money towards the $500,000 that are required for this class action lawsuit to go forward. And at this point in time, according to the report we received, no law firm has stepped forward to take this on in a manner where they're paid at the, for the outcome. So where the funds are going to be going that are collected already, I suppose are going to be held in trust, or could you shed a little light on that, Miss? Is it COSA?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, where do the funds that are presently held exist?
Yeah, no funds are being held. It's just a commitment from council that they will set aside the money when the time comes, that 500,000 residents, and then the, you know, yeah, exactly. So the money is certainly not coming to West Coast Environmental Law. We don't take a penny, but it will go towards hiring a lawyer, and that will be decided by the lead plaintiff and those participating governments, and no money is spent until the time that the case goes forward, when 500,000 people have, you know, municipalities representing 500,000.
Well, thank you for clarifying that. And in terms of how our budget works, we would have to set these funds aside in our future budget for them to be accessible at when such time that you're ready to proceed, or whoever is ready to proceed with this. So, you know, I think we're being a little premature and asking all of our residents to put up $1,400 of their tax dollars at this point, when we're strapped at the city here. We can't even find enough money to keep our roads from having a number of potholes in them throughout our jurisdiction. So I am not going to support option number 2, but I will be in full support of option number 1, to receive the report, which has shed light on the situation. And then when such time that these funds are raised, the 500,000, and they find a law firm willing to take this on, I am sure the city of Powell River and our council would be very supportive of putting together or putting forward those $14,000 at that time. But I don't want our hard-earned tax dollars just to be sitting around not being put to work for the city. Thank you, Your Worship.
Councillor Isaacson.
Thank you, Mayor Wasno. Yeah, I'm of differing thoughts on this one. I think about now and I think about the future. So from my now hat, you know, my preference is to focus on climate change, mitigation and adaptation projects locally, and that we have direct control over, like advancing public transit and active transportation, advancing zero-step code, for example, moving to zero waste, some things that we have in our adopted strategic plan. The adopted strategic plan asks us to focus on climate work, but in a few key areas. And then I have my future hat on, where I often talk about one of the lenses that I use in my council role is to look like 50 to 75 years into the future and think about the decisions that I have now, and whether I can look back on my decisions and can I be a good ancestor at the time of my making decisions now. What West Coast Environmental Law, they're getting the ball rolling, and this is a lawsuit in principle with details to be sorted out later and directly overseen by municipalities. It's not, money's not going through the hands of West Coast Environmental Law. And so it's the question of, like, do we trust the details to be sorted out later among the municipalities that sign on to this? And so I am leaning towards support at this time. I have conflicting views, but I think that I am willing to make this support in principle. And if this doesn't pass, then as Councillor Elliott said, there's an opportunity to consider this in the future, reconsider it in the future by when new information comes to light, or if more communities sign on. Thank you.
Councillor Almeida, did you?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'm going to be more in line with Councillor Elliott and Councillor Palm on this particular matter. And like Councillor Elliott said, it's not that I'm opposed to taking actions that are going to help our climate in general. I'm not yet convinced that this is the direction or the time to do it. I'm not concerned so much from a budgetary perspective to earmark 14,000 in our community budget, even in tight times. It's more so I haven't got the information to, and as small town community that we are, I'd be curious to see what else is happening and the results of other situations happening elsewhere before jumping in. I was going to ask about how many communities are on board. Ms. Koza's already answered that question because it was 3 in July. It's now 5, 8 months later. And we already knew in July that Vancouver had committed at one point and then pulled out, which would have been there, provided them the 500,000 people that they needed right away. So I'm not ready to move into number 2. I could go on about other reasons I have, but for that purpose, I'll just stick to that.
Councillor Dowd.
Yeah, I've listened to everybody, and I respect, Councillor Southcott's done a lot of studying and reading and thinking about this issue for a long time, but I don't agree that courts are likely to resolve the issue. Courts make decisions and lay blame, but courts don't resolve issues, in my experience. So what I want to do is talk about the report that we've got from staff. It talks about $14,000 and setting it aside over a period of time for a lawsuit that's not happening yet. We don't know if it will benefit the city or not. And I would prefer to see local actions that this council can do one step at a time locally and encourage other municipalities to do the same thing that might actually do some good right now. If this lawsuit gets going and if it succeeds, it's going to be a long time down the road before we see any results, because I know the process and I know that we'll see big oil delaying and delaying and delaying. So I might not even be around when they make a decision. So I won't be supporting this, and I regret that. I respect all the people that are here making their decision, making their plea known to us, but I won't be supporting this.
Thank you. I'm just going to comment that I started working with West Coast Environmental Law back, I believe, in 1988, and I have a strong appreciation for their commitment, dedication, and a variety of things that they've done to benefit all of BC. With regard to class action suits, the normal process is you find a lawyer and a law firm that will do their due diligence. And if they believe there's a slight hope of winning the case, they will take it on. The suggestion of the approach that's tabled here could result in the city of Powell River moving from a $14,000 commitment to a $2,000 commitment to a $2 million commitment before, as Councillor Dowd points out, this is likely a 10-year exercise. And so I will not support the motion, and there's no further discussions. We'll call the motion. Sorry, could we have the CO please read the motion on the floor?
Certainly, Your Worship. The motion on the floor is that Powell River City Council commit to providing up to $14,000 in funding to pursue a class action lawsuit against large oil, gas, and coal companies, contingent upon other BC municipalities joining and raising a minimum amount of $500,000 combined.
Okay. All in favor of the motion? Opposed?
No, thank you. No.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask the CAO at this point. Should there be a motion accepting the recommendation?
Through the chair to councillor, to the mayor. Beg your pardon. You have two options in front of you, and you can choose to make an alternate. Option one is that Powell River City Council received the report for information, and then the other one is the one that you just dismissed.
Thank you. Councillor Dowd.
I'll move that the Powell River City Council receive this report for information.
Seconded by Councillor Almeida. Any further discussion? Councillor Isaacson. And then,
Yeah, I was just going to add, I'm wondering if I could add an amendment to receive this report and Andrew Gage's correspondence to us for information, just so that that letter's on the record as well. So it would be to receive this report, yes, and Andrew Gage's, who is the lawyer with West Coast Environmental Law, for information.
we have a seconder on the amendment. Discussion, Councillor Palm.
I just want to just read the analysis and implications to those in the audience that came to support this motion. In terms of option one, Councillor Doubt has read the recommendation from staff, and the analysis and implications state: 1, allow council to evaluate the outcomes of other court cases, including those where no payment upfront to lawyers is required which is typical of a class action lawsuit. 2, may be perceived that council does not align with the purpose of the class action lawsuit versus the issue of funding one legal firm's class action. And 3, does not prevent council, and this is important, from taking ongoing and future actions to achieve this strategic priority to mitigate and adapt to climate change and decrease GHG emissions. Thank you, Your Worship.
So we have a motion, we have an amended motion.
Voting on the
We
amendment.
have to vote on
Yes.
the amendment.
Yes. So all in favor of the amended motion? Passed unanimously. We'll now go to the main motion as amended. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. We will now move to item 9, which is reports for information. We have the report from the municipal directors of the Cathet Regional District. Who would like to start? Councillor Elliott.
I can do that for sure. Before I get started, I wanted to thank our the name escaped me, for being available for that item online for us and spending time with us here this evening. So thank you very much to West Coast Law. The report from the municipal directors, I'll just pull up that. We did have our regional board meeting yesterday, and we received a letter from the Minister of Housing, Ravi Calhoun. I say his name wrong, Kalan, and he was answering questions that the regional district had written about in concern to the new legislation. And so that letter is available on the agenda so that people can read it. He tried to respond to most of our concerns. Some of the tone was not necessarily a regional district kind of direction. And so there's some folks on the board that were concerned that maybe he thought he was writing to a municipality rather than a regional district. But I think he had it, he had answers that he thought were the right answers. And he said he knows that we're getting started and everything's new. And he's hoping that some of the checks and balances that we have in there are going to work out. But hopefully that happens. We have a lot of things to iron out in the devil's in the details as well. Sunshine Coast Tourism came and did a delegation at the previous committee of the whole, asking for agreement in principle with Connect the Coast project, which is a all ages active transportation corridor from Lang Bay all the way to Lund, and that it's a concept. And the regional district did provide approval in principle they passed that motion to be an approval in principle for the concept. So there is not any money dedicated at this point in time. It's hopeful that we can include it as ideas for our official community plan, get things ironed out, and identify funding at some point in the future to do segments and approach it in sections. The idea would be to have a separate path from the highway the whole way so that it's safe for people to bike or ride things or walk along that corridor. And it's going to make, they have they used over on the far side of Vancouver Island in the Tofino area. They have one that they've put in over there on the west coast, and they're getting all kinds of wonderful tourism out of the idea. So that's what it's for. The consent agenda included a number of items that passed, which the secondary suite incentive program for the North Coast Regional District, we decided to be co-signatories to that letter. The strat plan progress report was there. The 2024 to 2026 accessibility plan, a policy for video surveillance, rural on-demand transit feasibility study was also received by the board, so it is on that agenda there for folks who want that. The electric vehicle chargers in the Cathet Regional District, there was a motion passed for looking into that. The 2024 Community Emergency Preparedness Fund Emergency Ops Center Training Grant was endorsed to go to UBCM for a grant of $30,000. Shelter Point Park concession RFP is going to go out to see if somebody will operate the concession there this year. There was a motion also passed for exploring organics diversion on Texada Island in the future as soon as we are done with getting our site here up and running. And that's my report.
Doubt, do you have further?
Councillor Isaacson did a great job of hitting all the high points. No, it wasn't Councillor Isaacson. You're just helping out. Councillor Elliott, sorry about that.
Thank you. We'll move to item 10, which is bylaws. The first one is proposed bylaw 2738. Would like to, yes, Councillor Isaacson.
I'll read. I move that City of Pell River Municipal Solid Waste Collection Bylaw 2738 2024 be adopted.
Seconded by Councillor Almeida.
I can speak to it briefly. This is housekeeping required to be able to implement the changes to the solid waste pickup, in particular our shift to include more organics pickup citywide, and this makes that part of that official.
Thank you. All in favor? Passed unanimously. Item 10.2 is the proposed bylaw 2740. Yes, Councillor Elliott.
I move that the City of Pell River revenue and, oh, wait a minute, 10.2 is this one. I was right? Okay. I move that the City of Pell River revenue anticipated borrowing bylaw 2740 2024 be adopted.
Seconded by Councillor Isaacson. Yes, Councillor.
So this bylaw is one that we do every year, and it allows us to borrow money prior to collecting taxes in July if we should need to do so. I understand that we've never needed to do so, but having it in place is the conservative and safe thing to do for money management in our city.
All in favor of the motion? Passed unanimously. 10.3 is a proposed bylaw financial plan amendment. Councillor Almeida.
Move that the 2023 five-year financial plan bylaw 2715, 2023, amendment bylaw 2741, 2024 be adopted.
Councillor Elliott. Discussion, Councillor.
Speak, and CFO can correct me if I misspeak, but I believe this bylaw covers all the changes that we voted on throughout the 2023 year to get them in line with our five-year financial plan.
Further discussion? All in favor? Passed unanimously. 10.4 is a proposed bylaw 2742, 2024, dealing with the 2024 financial plan. Councillor Isaacson.
Yes, I move that draft City of Powell River 5-year financial plan bylaw 2742, 2024 be read a second and third time.
Yes.
And I'll speak to it briefly. So this is the budget, and it's a 5-year financial plan, but the one that is often most interested to people is what is happening in 2024. This doesn't outline the tax rates that will come after all of the final, appeals of assessments come in, et cetera. But this sets the budget, what we're spending money on and how much tax revenue we need to collect. And so this process started last August, and there's been a number of public meetings, a public session, a survey, a number of council discussions. And so these bylaws need to be read at first, and then a second, and a third, and then adopted. And so this is the next step in the process if it's council's will to read it a second and third time tonight.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Passed unanimously. So, unless I've missed something, we'll go to Mr. Galinsky if you have any questions. Anybody in the audience have a question? Yes, 2 questions. Please come forward, introduce yourself.
A resident of Powell River. Oh, closer to the mic so you can hear me. Okay. I'm just, give me a second here. I've been looking.
That's a compliment, by the way, that we want to hear you.
Well, thank you. On that waste thing with regional board that we were talking about, is that for the transfer site?
For the entire waste service that the regional district has. And the resource recovery center is part of that.
Yeah, so that's an increase on what we've already borrowed over and above.
It's not an increase to, the only thing it increases is the limit of taxation that can be collected. Okay, so you have the regional district services have a limit, an upper limit of tax that can be collected for each service. And there is a process you have to go through to change that limit. That's what the bylaw that was here today does, is it changes the limit. The changes to taxation would happen in a budget process separately from that.
Don't quite understand that, but.
Councillor Elliott, would you like?
I'm going to try to help. So the budget includes the increases in order to pay for the debt that you're referring to.
Right.
And those increases have to come through the service or requisition for a service. So this bylaw changes the requisition for that service, so they're allowed to tax the amount that they need to pay off that debt. Does that help?
Okay, so because you're raising it 0.4944% to bring in a total of 3.674 million.
At a maximum, so if that's not what's in the budget, that's not what's happening.
Okay,
So that would be the legally allowed limit on that service at this time as a result of that change. So they may have a different amount that they're actually requisitioning for what they need, and then they don't need to go change it next year or the next year. So that the limit is probably higher than what's actually happening.
Okay, and I understand that part, but what I guess where I'm coming from is that was the last year's budget, we'll just use 2 million for a figure, and you want to increase it to 3.6 to take this year, next year, or is last year's 2 million not included in this 3.6?
Councillor Dowd,
that's where we were.
We'll answer that.
Okay.
All this is a total maximum of taxation that can be made for that service. It doesn't change the taxation. The taxation is determined in the budget.
Oh, okay, so then that's basically for running the waste transfer site.
The entire
Because the
waste.
city pays for theirs.
running the entire service. It's not limited to the waste transfer site.
Yes, that's right. But the city's portion is over and above that. Like for our pickup at our residence, wouldn't be part of that 3.6.
No, the
No.
bylaw we talked about for the city's waste management service, for the collection, putting all the stuff in the garbage trucks and taking it to the resource recovery center, that's totally a city expense, and it's covered in the city bylaws and paid for by charges and taxes.
So that's for running the site then, and then the stuff the city and everybody dumps to take it to Ranco or wherever.
Councillor Almeida, did you want to provide further clarification?
Yeah, I'm definitely no expert in this, but I think Mr. Hess is just getting a little bit into the weeds. So if I'm understanding Mr. Councillor Dowd correctly, and let me see if I paint a picture that will create an illustration that might explain what Councillor Dowd's talking about. So I'll use generic numbers to be safe. If I understand Councillor Dowd correctly, you're saying, let's just take $10 out of 1,000. So you're saying right now that the regional district can tax $10 out of $1,000 to cover waste services, whatever those services might be. Don't get into specifics. This bylaw is allowing the regional district to, let's say, increase that to $15 out of 1,000. It's not actually making the change, but it's giving them the opportunity over the future years of budgets to be able to increase from that $10. Is that about right?
So I'll put it another way. So
No,
the regional district's bylaw says the regional district can spend up to this amount and no more.
Correct.
And then the budget determines how much will be spent.
No, I got that part. No, my question was, what's it paying for? So basically, it's paying for everything from that goes to the transfer site, running the transfer site, and disposing it wherever they dispose of it.
All of the stuff that the regional district does. And the regional district has some other recycling sites and deals with waste on Lasqueti Island and things like that. So that's all part of that service.
Okay.
And the city service is totally separate.
Yeah. So if in the city, my garbage doesn't get picked up, or I've got too much and I go up there when it opens, is there going to be a fee for dumping it there? Or will it still be like you go to Augusta now, you pay to dump?
And you'll pay at the new resource recovery center too, or you can put it in your garbage can at home and we'll pick it up as a city service.
But when you go to a 2-week pickup every second week, which you're going to, a lot of garbage cans, a lot of people with families won't be able to do it. Wait that 2 weeks for a pickup. And that's what I'm wondering.
Oh, you're getting into the debate about that, and that's
No.
a logistic question. And if you're picking up compost and that's separated out from your garbage maybe will be a little bit less. And we've had reports on reports of that. But I think we can also get bigger bins if I'm correct, and I don't know if the city staff could answer that today. But I think if you need a bigger bin for your household garbage, I think you can get it.
Just wait for.
Okay.
Could probably answer.
Anyways, you've answered my question. Thank you. We'll worry about the other one when time comes.
Thank you.
Hello, Robin Murray here. This is in regards to item number 1 under announcements, which is every week or every other week when we have the meetings. I see this great little article from Paul Galinsky, looks quite good, about Mr. Singh, who came for a visit this past week, the leader of the NDP.
Point of order, we didn't talk. This wasn't on the agenda.
As an announcement, I would like to find out, were there any councillors at the meeting?
Sorry, I'm going to ask the CAO or CO to clarify as to whether or not this would be a question that can be answered given the agenda.
Through the chair, it's the will of council. However, your indicates that questions have to relate to items on the agenda. Thank you.
I'm looking to whether or not there's a consensus that we will answer Mr. Murray's question. If not, we'll thank Mr. Murray and he'll go home. Councillor Almeida.
Just answer your question.
Which question?
Let's have a show of hands for those that would like to address the question.
Okay with it.
Okay.
I don't mind. I would like him to not have more questions after, though, because we're answering out of turn and it's not within our procedures bylaw.
All right. Mr. Murray, you have one question that council will address.
Were any, at last week's meeting, there was no announcement that Mr. Singh was coming, even though I had heard of a rumor, and now he's on the front page of the newspaper. Were there any councillors, or yes, were there, which councillors were at the meeting, if they were at all?
Councillor Almeida?
I can't answer who was there. I'm pretty sure I don't think any council was there. I don't think any council was aware of it. And I even heard that our own MLA, who's part of the NDP, also was not aware of Mr. Singh's visit. So I think it was a last minute decision by the federal NDP leader to come, and kudos to Mr. Galinsky for getting a scoop on the article by some way or form. But I think it was a surprise visit for everyone outside of the nation.
I think the answer is no one at staff or council were made aware or invited.
Thank you.
That's really.
So I did find about his visit on Facebook when I saw his pictures from other posts, but nobody that I'm aware of from council was invited or informed of his visit.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, please come forward.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. Roger Whitaker, citizen of Powell River. 8.1 on the agenda. I'm really pleased to see that you tabled or just received the information. And if I might be permitted just to comment, are you aware that using one of the guest speakers' comments that the United States is all for this and how many cities in the States are doing it, that 34 states and Washington, D.C. allow for open carry of some form. That means either just an open firearm or an holster. So I just want to say that I'm glad to see that you decided just to file this for now, the Sue Big Oil, because doing what they're doing in the States isn't always a really good idea. And thank you for that.
Any additional questions from the audience?
Motion to adjourn?
Well, no, we're going to see if anybody's online that would like to ask a question. Thank you. You can now go to a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Seconded, all in favor? Thank you.